Hi guys, today I'm going to read The Adventures of Captain Underpants. This is my first book in Captain Underpants series. And also, I talked too close to the mic, so I'm gonna stay away from the mic just a bit. Okay, and superpowers come in book 3, Captain Underpants series. So, I'm gonna read until then and see how it goes. Also, the comments aren't on, so I'm gonna deal with it later. Also, if you can't hear me well, I will fix the comments and you tell me, okay? Okay, so let's get started. The Adventures of Captain Underpants, now in full color. Tra-la-la! First epic novel by Dave Pilkey. Chapters. Oh wait, I never read chapters. Chapter 1. George and Harold. Meet George Beard and Harold Hutchins. George is a kid on the left with the tie and the flat top. Harold is the one with the t-shirt and the bad haircut. Remember that now. Flower shop. Pick your own roses. George and Harold were best friends. They had a lot in common. They lived right next door to each other, and they were both in the same 4th grade class at Jerome Horwitz Elementary School. Oh wow, that's long. George and Harold were usually responsible kids. Whenever anything bad happened, George and Harold were usually responsible. But don't get the wrong idea about these two. George and Harold were actually very nice boys, no matter whatever everybody else thought. They were good, sweet, and lovable. Okay, maybe they aren't sweet and lovable, but they were good nonetheless. Flower shop. Pick our noses. They always do things like that, you know. It's just that George and Harold had a silly streak a mile long. Usually that silly streak was hard to control. Sometimes it got them into trouble. And once it got them into big trouble. But before I can tell you that story, I have to tell you this story. Chapter 2, Treehouse Comics, Inc., I think. After a hard day of cracking jokes, pulling pranks, and causing mayhem at school, George and Harold liked to rush to the old treehouse in George's backyard. Inside the treehouse were 2 big old fluffy chairs, a table, and a cupboard crammed with junk food, and a padlock crate filled with pencils, pens, and stacks of paper. You know why. Now, Harold loved to draw, and George loved to make stories, and together, the two boys spent hours and hours writing and drawing their very own comic books. Well, I like to say that's very creative, so I like the point of that. Over the years, they created hundreds of their own comics, starring dozens of their own superheroes. First, there was Dogman. It's in my, bookshelf, It's very fun. You should do that. I'm gonna read it later, I think. And then came Timmy the Talking Toilet. I do not know about that. And who could forget the amazing cow lady? I don't know that either. The all-time greatest superhero they ever made up had to be the amazing Captain Underpants. George came up with the idea. Most superheroes look like they're flying around with their underwear, he said. Well, this guy actually is flying around in his underwear. The 2 boys laughed and laughed. Yeah, said Harold. He could fight with wedgie power. George and Harold spent the entire afternoons writing and drawing the comic adventures of Captain Underpants. He was their coolest superhero ever. Luckily for the boys, the secretary at Jerome Horwitz Elementary School was much too busy to keep an eye on the copy machine. So, whenever they got a chance, Harold and George would sneak into the office and run off several hundred of copies of their latest Captain Underpants adventure. After school, they sold their homemade comics on the playground for 50 cents each. Chapter 3: The Adventures of Captain Underpants. Written by George Beard, cartoons by Harold Hutchins. The really cool adventures of Captain Underpants. It was time of darkness and despair for planet Earth. Bad guys had taken over the streets, and all of the superheroes in the world were too old to fight evil. Hey! Haha! Oh, super old. Superman, super old. Wonder Woman, super old. Batman. Then along came a new improved extra strength superhero. Tra-la-la! Look up in the sky, it's a bird. It's a plane. Wait, why is that dog talking? It's an egg salad sandwich. Yeah, that is definitely not a thing. Oh wait, it's a thing, but how can that fly? No way, I'm Captain Underpants. Captain Underpants was faster than a speeding waistband. And that's not true. More powerful than boxer shorts. No. And able to leap tall buildings without getting a wedgie. Isn't that obvious for any kind of villains? Tra-la-la! Night and day, Captain Underpants watched over the city, fighting for truth, justice, and all that's pre-shock and cottony. I don't know. That's it. Meanwhile, at a nearby elementary school, turn the page. It was Stinky Taco Surprise Day at the cafeteria. Yuck! Everybody hated so much, they all threw it away. Soon, the cafeteria food came to life. I am the inedible Hulk. Okay. The monster ran around the school eating everything in sight. Munch! Help! The inevitable Hulk just ate up 15 folding chairs and the gym teacher. No! Oh no, not folding chairs. They should worry more about the gym teacher. Look, this looks like a job for... Tra-la-la! Captain Underpants! Captain Underpants shot a lot of underwear at the monster, but it didn't do any good. Munch, munch, zip. So Captain Underpants took off running. The inedible Hulk chased him. Help! And chased him. And finally, the inedible Hulk got too tired and thirsty to chase Captain Underpants. How about a nice drink of water? Boys' bathroom. So the monster took a long drink from a shiny white bowl. Gulp, glop. When suddenly, flash! Hooray for Captain Underpants! The king of pranks and justice. How is that possible? So the inedible Hulk got flushed away and was never heard from again. Tra-la-la! The end. Don't miss their next exciting adventure, Captain Underpants and the Attack of the Talking Toilets. Coming soon to a playground near you. Giro's Comics, Inc. Chapter 4. The mean old Mr. Crab. Do you see that old guy looking out the window up there? That's Mr. Crab, the principal. Now, Mr. Crab was the meanest, sourest old principal in the whole history of Jerome Howard Elementary School. He hated laughter and singing. He hated the sounds of children playing at recess. In fact, he hated children altogether. And guess which two children Mr. Crab hated most of all? Well, that's obvious, isn't it? If you guessed George and Harold, you're right. Mr. Crab hated Jordan Harold. He hated the pranks and their wisecracks. He hated the silly attitudes and their constant giggling. And especially hated those awful Captain Underpants comics. Well, that's not true. I'm going to get those boys one day. Mr. Cutbout. One day. Very, very soon. Neil here. Wait, what? Chapter 5. One day, very, very soon. It's today. Remember when I said Jordan Harold and that Jordan Harold's silly streak got them into big trouble once? Well, this is the story of how that happened. Yeah, it's over. Some huge pranks and a little blackmail turned the principal into the coolest superhero of all time. Well, not then. In book 3, like I said. It was the day of the big football game between the Horrocks Knucklehead and the Steubenville Stinkbugs. The bleachers were filled with fans. Jerome Horrocks Elementary. See our big football game today. The cheerleaders ran onto the field and shook their pom-poms over their heads. A fine black dust drifted out of their pom-poms and settled all around them. "Give me a K!" shouted the cheerleaders. "K!" repeated the fans. "Give me an N!" shouted the cheerleaders. "N!" repeated the fans. "Give me an Achoo! Sneezed the cheerleaders. Achoo! repeated the fans. Achoo, achoo, achoo. Cheerleaders sneezed some more. They couldn't stop sneezing. "Hey!" shouted the fan in the bleachers. "Somebody sprinkled black pepper into the cheerleaders' pom-poms." "I wonder who did that?" asked another fan. "Well, remember silly streak?" Yeah, this is a bit overload. The cheerleaders stumbled off the field, sneezing and dripping with mucus as the marching band members took their places. But when the band began to play, steady streams of bubbles began blowing out of their instruments. Bubbles were everywhere, up and down the field. The marching band slipped and slid, leaving behind a thick trail of wet, bubbly foam. "Hey!" shouted the fan in the bleachers. "Somebody poured bubble bath into the marching band's instruments." "I wonder who did that?" asked another band. Soon, the football teams took the field. The knuckleheads kicked their ball. Up went the ball. Higher and higher it went. The ball sailed into the clouds and kept going right on until nobody could see it anymore. Not even Mongolians. "Hey!" shouted the fan in the bleachers. "Somebody filled the game ball with helium." "I wonder who did that?" asked another fan. But the mix of all didn't make any difference because at that moment the knuckleheads were rolling around and they feel scratching and itching like crazy. "Hey!" shouted the coach. "Somebody replaced their deep heating muscle rub lotion with Mr. Prankster's extra sketchy itching cream." "We wonder who did that!" shouted the fans in the bleachers. The whole afternoon went on much the same way, with people shouting everything from "Hey, somebody put sea monkey in the lemonade, ew," to "Hey, somebody glued all the bathroom doors shut." Well, that's a bit of a really overload. Before long, most of the fans in the bleachers had gotten up and left. The big game had forfeited, and everyone at the entire school was miserable. Jerome Horrocks Elementary. Boys our feet smell bad, and they don't even notice that it's Jordan Harold because Design changing is mostly the trademark of Jordan Harold. Wow. Everyone, that is, except for two giggling boys crouching in the saddles beneath the bleachers. You know, those were our best pranks yet, laughed Harold. Yep, chuckled George. They'll be hard to top, that's for sure. No one is gonna top that because no one is doing that. I just hope we don't get busted through this, said Harold. Don't worry, said George. We covered the tracks really well. There's no way we'll get busted. And just as that said that, Chapter 6, Busted. Yeah. Next day at school, an announcement came over the loudspeakers. George Beard and Harold Hutchins, please report to Principal Krupp's office at once. Uh-oh, said Harold. I don't like the sound of that. Don't worry, said George. They can't prove anything. Whenever they say don't worry, it's happening. George and Harold entered Principal Krupp's office and sat down on the chairs in front of his desk. The two boys had been in this office together countless times before, but this time was different. Mr. Krupp was smiling. As long as George and Harold had known Mr. Krupp, they had never, ever seen him smile. Mr. Krupp knew something. I didn't see you boys at the big game yesterday, said Mr. Krupp. No, said George. We weren't feeling well. Yeah, Harold stammered nervously. We went home. Oh, that's too bad, said Principal Krupp. You boys missed a good game. George and Harold quickly glanced at each other, gulped, and tried hard not to look guilty. Lucky for you, I have a videotape for the whole thing. Mr. Krupp said. He turned on the television in the corner and pressed the play button on the VCR. A black and white image appeared on the TV screen. It was an overhead shot of George and Harold sprinkling pepper into the cheerleaders' pom-poms. Next came a shot of George and Harold pouring liquid bubble bath into marching band's instruments. How do you like the pre-game show? Asked Mr. Krupp with a devilish grin. George eyed the television screen in terror. He couldn't answer. Harold's eyes were glued on the floor. He couldn't look. The tape went on, revealing all of George and Harold's behind-the-scenes antics. By now, both the boys were eyeing the floor, squirming nervously and dripping with sweat. Mr. Krupp turned off the TV. Reckon my screen. You know, he said, ever since you boys came into this school, it's one prank after another. First, you did the frogs in Jell-O salad at the parent-teacher banquet. Then you made it snow in the cafeteria. Then you rigged all of the intercoms so they played Weird Al Yankovic songs full blast for 6 hours straight. For 4 long years, you two have been running amok on the school. And I've never been unable to prove anything until now. Mr. Krupp held the videotape on his hand. I took the liberty of installing tiny video surveillance cameras all around the school. I knew I'd catch you two in the act one day. I just didn't know it would be so easy. Chapter 7, A Little Blackmail. Mr. Krupp sat back on his chair and chuckled to himself for a long time. Finally, George got up the courage to speak. What are you gonna do with the tape? He said. I thought you never asked, laughed Mr. Principal Crab. I've thought long and hard about what to do with this tape, Mr. Crab said. At first, I thought I sent copies to your parents. The boys swallowed hard and sank deeply into their chairs. Then I thought I meant send a copy to the school board. Mr. Crab continued. Why could you both get expelled for this? The boys swallowed harder and sank deeply into the chairs. Finally, I came to a decision, Mr. Crab concluded. I think the football team would be very curious to find out who was responsible for yesterday's fiasco. I think I'll send a copy to them. George and Harold leaped out of their chairs and fell to their knees. No, cried George. You can't do that. They'll kill us. Yeah, begged Harold. They'll kill us every day for the rest of our lives. Mr. Crab laughed and laughed. Please have mercy, the boys cried. We'll do anything. Anything? asked Mr. Crab with delight. He reached into his desk and pulled out a list of demands and tossed it at the boys. If you don't want to be dead as long as you live, you'll follow these rules exactly. George and Harold carefully looked over the list. This is blackmail, said George. Call it what you like, Mr. Crab snapped. But if you two don't follow that list exactly, then this tape will become the property of the horrid knucklehead. Rules. 1. No more practical jokes or pranks. 2. No smiling or laughing. But that is just blackmail. 3. No more. Number 4. No more Captain Underpants comics. I think. 5. Wash my car? No. Oh wait, yes. You can see it on the Chapter 8. Car every day. 6. Mao my. I don't know. Chapter 8. Crime and Punishment. At 6 o'clock in the morning. 6 o'clock the next morning, George and Harold dragged themselves out of bed and walked over to Mr. Crab's house and began washing his car. Then, while Harold scrubbed the tires, George roamed around the yard pulling up all the weeds and grass he could find. Afterward, they cleaned the gutters and washed all the windows on Mr. Crab's house. At school, George and Harold sat up straight, listened carefully, and spoke only when spoken to. They didn't take jokes, they didn't pull on pranks. They didn't even smile. Their teacher kept pinching themselves. I just know this is a dream, she said. At lunch, the two boys vacuumed Mr. Crab's office, shined his shoes, and polished his desktop. At recess, they clipped his fingernails and ironed his tie. Each spare moment in the boys' daily schedule was spent catering to Mr. Crab's every whim. If the school knew that, they would be half delight, half mad. But the police wouldn't let it, so I guess he would be in jail. After school, George and Harold mowed Mr. Crab's lawn. Also, that was Mr. Crab's lawn. Tended his garden and began painting the front of his house. At sunset, Mr. Crab came outside and handed each boy a stack of papers. of books. "Gentlemen," he said, "I've asked your teachers to give you both extra homework. Now go home, study hard, and I'll see you back here at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. We got a busy day ahead of us." "Thank you, sir," moaned the two boys. George and Harold walked home dead tired. "Man, this was the worst day of my entire life," said George. "Don't worry, said Harold. "You only have to do this for 8 more years. Then we can move away to some far-off island where they'll never find us. Maybe Antarctica." "I've got a better idea," said George. "Hey, kiddo, it's the 3D Hypno-Ring. Learn the art of hypnosis. Amaze your friends. Control your enemies. Rule the world." "What?" "It's easy. Only $2.99. Send check or money order to the Little Wise Guy Novelty.com, I think. P.O. Box. I know. Please allow 4 to 6 weeks for delivery, plus 1.01 shipping and handling." He took a piece of paper out of his pocket and handed it to Harold. It was the old magazine ad for the 3D Hypno Ring. "How is this going to help us? Asked Harold. "All we gotta do, wait, is hypnotize Mr. Krupp," said George. "We'll make him give us the videotape and forget this whole mess ever happened." "That's a great idea," said Harold. "And the best part is we only have to wait 4 to 6 weeks for delivery, not 8 years. Chapter 9. 4 to 6 years, 6 weeks later. After 4 to 6 weeks of backbreaking slave labor, grueling homework assignments, and humiliating good behavior at school. Well, that must have been very, 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 very hard. Normal people would be still hard, but silly dudes, it's like torture and torture. A package arrived in George's mailbox from Little Wise Guy Novelty Company. It was the 3D Hypno Ring. To George Beard, 11526 Fine St. Piqua 45356. "Hallelujah!" cried George. "It's everything I hoped for." Let me see," said Harold. "Don't look directly at it," warned George. "You don't want to get hypnotized, do you?" "Do you really think it will work?" asked Harold. "Do you really think we can amaze our friends, control enemies, and take over the world just like the ad says? But not take over the world, fine. But enemies try to take over. It better work," said George, "or else we just waited 4 whole bucks." Chapter 10. The 3D Hypno Ring. The next morning, George and Harold didn't arrive early at Mr. Krupp's house to wash his car and reshingle his roof. In fact, they were even a little late of getting to school. When they finally showed up, Mr. Krupp was standing at the front door and waiting for them. And boy, he was mad. Mr. Krupp escorted the boys into his office and slammed the door. "All right, Where were you two in this morning? He growled. We wanted to come over to your house, said George, but we were too busy trying to figure out the secret of this ring. What ring? Snapped Mr. Crow. George held up his hand and showed the ring to Mr. Principal Crab. It's got one of those weird patterns on it, said Harold. If you stare at it long enough, a picture appears. Well, hold it still, snarled Mr. Crab. I can't see the darn thing. I have to move it back and forth, said George, or else it wouldn't work. Mr. Crab's eyes followed the ring back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. You have to stare deeper into the ring, Harold, said Harold. Deeper, 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 deeper. You are getting sleepy, said George. Very sleepy. Mr. Crab's eyes began to droop. I'm so sleepy, he mumbled. After a few minutes, Mr. Crab's eyes were closed tight, and he began to snore. You're under our spell, said George. When I snap my fingers, you obey our every command. Snap! Wait. I will obey, mumbled Mr. Crab. And that is the end of the Adventures of Captain Underpants. Now in full color, the first epic novel by David Pilkey. Okay, guys, if you enjoyed this, like and subscribe. Okay? Okay, so anyways, bye guys.